UFP, the United Federation of Podcasts.
Infinite diversity.
Live long and prosper, and welcome to Infinite Diversity, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on the United Federation of Podcasts Network. I'm your host for today, Justin Oser, and joining me are my co-hosts Chrissie De Clerck-Szilagyi and Brandon Shea-Matala. Chrissie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I was just got my my queen cat over here who I was petting, and now I'm here to talk Discovery with everybody.
Never forget that she's a queen.
Oh,
you have
yes.
to be reminded of that. Yeah. What's your cat's name again?
Well, there's four.
Four. Oh, wow. Okay. Four
It's
cats.
shared custody with my parents. The one that is often up here and the one that I tweeted the picture of last week is Buster. And then there's Boo, Boo Boo Kitty, who is his, we call her, the swife, because my mother was trying to get a giant Maine Coon, so she ended up accidentally getting two cats that were different litters from the same mother but different fathers. So they're sister husband or sister wife and brother husband, and then they produced Buddy, and he's Buddy. And then we have another cat that I'm really happy to bring up because he's named Gustavus Adolphus after the king, who is also with the namesake of our guest's university. So that's just fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Well, there you go. There's a little short history. We'll have to have a longer episode sometime just about your cats. Yeah.
Random cat information. There we go. Okay.
Yeah. So, Brandon, tell me how you're doing today with your giant stash of dilithium that you can take out with a robot arm anytime that you want.
Not only that, but it's red dilithium.
That's right.
I'm doing really good. And, Justin, I just wanted to tell you, I always knew I would see you again. Even though it's only been 12 hours since I saw you and we jumped through time, I always knew I would see you again.
Yeah, that's great. Although it has been more than 12 hours since I've seen you, more like 168, but that's okay. All right. Well, now that we've made sure that our hosts are here and ready to go, also join with us today is Darsa Donelan, Professor of Physics at Gustavus Adolphus College in St. Peter, Minnesota. Darsa, welcome to Infinite Diversity.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you here. And I should tell listeners, so I think I first became aware of you as a Star Trek fan from Mike Wong's excellent Strange New Worlds, a Science and Star Trek podcast. And he just does great episodes, and I always get introduced to people who are interesting Star Trek fans. Mm-hmm. So I think I found out from that you like to do cosplay in the classroom, including Star Trek cosplay. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that and maybe a little bit of your history as a Star Trek fan.
Sure. I guess they go together quite a bit. I really love Star Trek and how it has this message that it does not matter who you are valued and you belong. And that's something that's important for me when I work in a field that is incredibly male-dominated. Mm-hmm. And I am just, I guess, not the traditional view of a physicist. And I really appreciate Captain Janeway because she rose to the rank of captain through science rather than through command. Mm-hmm. So it is really cool to see this woman in this role, and she got there through science. So that was something that was really, really inspiring for me growing up. With cosplay, that's something I like quite a bit. It is very common for, I think, pretty much everybody, but especially scientists to experience imposter syndrome. And that's something that we see Tilly going through in Discovery. And it can be difficult for somebody to judge you, but if you put on a costume, you're somebody else. And I always get such great responses to my costumes whenever I'm playing a character. And that is something that helped me become more confident. And oftentimes when I'm teaching, I feel like I'm playing the role of professor. And when I started looking at things like that, it made it a lot easier. And then I like bringing the cosplay into the classroom because it is fun. The students love it. It is not every day because some costumes are impossible to teach in.
I can imagine. Well, you don't, what, I mean, probably the ones where it might require like prosthetic makeup or something would be a little more difficult to teach in, I would assume.
Yeah. And whenever I'm in the board costume, I can only view out of one eye.
Oh, yeah.
I have taught in it before. Not so much anymore. I'll just walk around campus in it for special occasions.
Okay. But yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Darsa, I have a question for you. Can you explain something that you just said, imposter syndrome? I haven't heard of this before. Can you explain what that is?
Oh, you haven't? Okay.
Oh, yes. So imposter syndrome is something that people go through a lot of times. It's grad students or somebody who is new to a job that they're doing. And you feel like everybody around you is so much smarter, so much more confident, just better than you are, and that you do not belong there. And we call it imposter syndrome because you feel like you are an imposter.
Okay.
But the reality is when you start talking to people, pretty much everybody feels the same way. So either none of us are imposters or we are all imposters.
Yeah, it's interesting, Darsa, because I've definitely felt that in some different jobs, even jobs that I've been doing for years, where I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing. People seem to think I know what I'm doing, but I'm really just not sure. And like in my job, I'm a project manager, and I've just had to say, like, every project has something that's a big problem, and it's okay. It doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm doing, but yeah, when I found that concept some years ago, I was like, yeah, I have experienced that. So yeah, it's something good to acknowledge that happens.
Yeah. It's certainly something I'm really glad that they incorporated into Discovery. Like, we did have a little bit of that in Voyager when they had their version of a Lower Decks episode. But with Tilly, we get to see that she is magnificent and amazing, but she casts all this doubt on herself, and I think a lot of that came from her mom. But yeah, and sometimes the way certain people in the crew treat her, like she's, you got selected to do this, or you're going to do this, but she's so capable. And being able to prove yourself and get over those feelings of not being good enough are very important. So I was very happy to see in episode 2 when Saru was very much mentoring her the way that Michael used to.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, excellent. Yeah, thanks, Darsa, for just kind of going over some of your Star Trek fandom and experience with that. So normally in these episodes, we would talk about news items. Didn't really find any news items to talk about this week, so we're just going to dive right into talking about Season 3, Episode 3 of Discovery, People of Earth. And we do like to start out with kind of general impressions or thoughts. So Darsa, actually, I'll ask you about kind of initial or general thoughts about this episode, but also if you want to just talk about kind of Discovery as a whole, since we haven't talked with you about Discovery before.
Sure. I was actually so excited that there was a colony on Titan. I did my PhD thesis was on Titan.
Oh, nice.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Excellent.
Too. Because the Titan, like, that's like the moons and whatnot. Like, there's a whole class of starship in Star Trek that's the Jupiter Moon class, like the same class that Riker's ship is, like the Titan.
Oh, you're talking about the Luna class.
The Luna class. Yeah, they're all named after moons
different
of Jupiter.
moons.
Titan is Saturn's moon.
Saturn, yeah.
Oh, is it Saturn? I thought it was Jupiter. Look at me. I don't know.
That's okay.
I knew it was one of the gas giants.
Yeah, but that was super exciting because I was like, oh, yay, Titan, I know about this. And they were talking about the hydrocarbons. And I'm like, yeah, there are so many on Titan. And it made me start thinking about when they jumped to get into our solar system, they came out near Saturn. So certainly the colony saw them.
Oh yeah, I guess yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, if I was thinking Jupiter, which was incorrect there, then yeah, they jumped right near Saturn. That's cool.
Yeah, we did not see Titan in the frame. It would have been nice, but it's there. It is Saturn's largest moon, so that was really cool. So I was definitely thinking about a lot of science at that time that I could certainly go into, but as far as from an emotional perspective, that was very interesting, like coming home and seeing like what has become of your planet and how xenophobic they've come. And I felt like it was very much paralleled with what is going on in our country right now. So that was very interesting.
And in general, what have you thought about kind of Discovery, like overall? Like, are you a fan of it, or how do you feel about it?
Yeah, actually, yes.
Oh, we've got a disco shirt on. Darsa's showing us a disco shirt, which is cool. Yeah, I
love Discovery. I think it is so fresh and so cool. I loved in season 1 how you think something's going on, like that's not very Federation. Why is this happening this way? And then they have that whole twist, like, oh, he's from the Mirror Universe. So that was really neat. And then it gets like the most Federation ever. And then they get to bring back characters that we love in season 2, all to build up like, hey, we're going to the future. And that is something that we've not seen in Star Trek yet. And having the story of, I guess we have Lower Decks now, but having that story be not just about the bridge crew was amazing. And I really love this idea of we don't know what's going to happen in the future because we do not have all those characters that we love there. We do not have Janeway or Picard or Kirk or anybody in this part of the future. So anything goes, and they can do all these new things. So it's so exciting.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. So, Chrissie, your kind of general thoughts or impressions on the episode?
Well, I'm not the first to say this by any means, but this was a super Trek episode. This was held all of the elements of Trek that we know and love. I wrote this down. Oh, right. So the whole issue is that the problem is not what it appears to be. Of course, that goes back with original Trek, just like Devil in the Dark and all that. And then there is such a point made of negotiating instead of shooting, and then you end up with potential mutual aid at the end. So, I mean, what else is there to say about it? It's that wonderfulness.
Okay, yeah. Brandon, your thoughts?
Well, the first thing I want to say, Justin, I need to know if you agree with me on this one here or not.
Okay.
Do you think Adira could totally be like either a child or the younger sibling of Chrissie? Totally looks like her.
She stole my haircut. I'll say that.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe similar hairstyle, but that wasn't in my mind.
Totally. I'm watching this. I'm like, this could be Chrissie's like younger sibling or Chrissie's child or whatever. Totally.
Okay. All right. But any other thoughts on the episode?
Yes, actually, I have a few. So the first thing I messaged to you guys and then I tweeted out, I think a few people may have misunderstood. I said, my tweet was that ? That was a Star Trek episode. And I think some people took it as like, I hated it, but I'm like, okay, well, that was a Star Trek episode. But like, no, like that was a Star Trek episode. It was so Star Trek, right? And I totally loved it from the first, my first watch of it for the things that Chrissie just said. Miscommunication, problem solving by talking it out and figuring out the solution, not resorting to violence, not resorting to shooting it out. You know, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And, you know, I was messaging in another group and I said to them, I'm like, look, like this has been my favorite 3 hours of Star Trek since season 4 of Enterprise. Wow. You know, like these 3 episodes, I'm just really so in love with this season right now. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there who like, they blame people loving the new stuff on the recency factor, which I know can definitely be an issue with some fans. But I mean, like, I've struggled with the first 2 seasons of Discovery, and so, and I came into Discovery season 1 saying this is going to be the greatest Trek ever, and didn't feel that way, you know, when I was watching it. But right now, I'm really, truly loving it. It's so cool where we are, what's going on. I've got so many wonderful questions, and I can't wait to find the answers. I'm so looking forward to it. So, another home run for me on this one.
Excellent. Oh, it just makes my heart so warm when we agree on an episode instead of violently disagreeing, Brandon. Yeah, so I absolutely love this one. I mean, you guys have already talked about, you know, some of the great stuff in this episode, but another thing I want to point out while it's still fresh in my mind is I really, really love kind of the evolution of Burnham's character, and that on the bridge, Saru is like, well, you know, he's hinting that we've got this thing to resolve about who's captain, and Burnham's like, no, it's always been you. I don't know if it's ever been me. And they just decided it like Saru is going to be the captain of Discovery, which is a huge milestone because he is the first non-human captain of a main ship on a Star Trek series ever. That's a really big deal. It's always been somebody who's human before, regardless of however much we love all those other human captains. So there were just things like that where I was like, yes, this makes sense. This is great. I love it. I mean, I feel the same way as you, Brandon. I mean, I think these 3 episodes together so far are my favorite things in kind of the new Star Trek of the last 3 years, even though I've loved a lot of it. And I think this episode in particular is just so resonant with what we're going through on this planet right now, and the kind of thing we need to see. And it's just, it managed to do this thing where you go to the 32nd century on Earth and it seems like things are bad. You know, the people on Earth are xenophobic and all of that, but it still gives you hope and inspiration in the end, which is what I love about Star Trek. So for me, this was one of the best episodes in all of Star Trek, at least how I think of it right now. I thought it was really great. Mm-hmm. So now that we've gotten through the initial thoughts, let's go into some of the details. So this episode actually begins kind of with a flashback sequence with Burnham kind of, I guess, in a log toward the end of the year that they've been there and been separated from Discovery, with this flashback and all this stuff, and she became a courier and all of that. I don't know how much time we'll spend on this, but it was interesting that they kind of briefly like went through that, and I think they're also hinting that there's some things that Burnham did that weigh on her a little bit, which you see later in the episode. So at least for that flashback sequence, I just wanted to get some thoughts. So Darsa, like, what did you think about that, kind of going back to that and then after that going forward to the reunion?
Yeah, I think that probably some of those things weighing on her is when she is in the Federation. She's a Federation commander, and sometimes when things are going the way they are, she had to make these decisions that were very un-Federation. Mm-hmm. And having this hurt over the Federation is gone, and now instead of upholding some of these things, I have to drop down to this level, is how she might be feeling it. It kind of reminded me back to season 3 of Enterprise when they were in the Expanse. And although there was not a Federation yet, Archer had to make some very un-Federation decisions.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
And there's things that Burnham is doing, decisions she probably had to make because she needs to find her friends and wants to then get to the bottom of why did the burn happen and what can I do to save the Federation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think there's also this sense that, I mean, maybe they just hint at it somewhat, but I think she also had the sense by sometime during that year that she was losing hope that she would ever find them or that they would ever arrive. So it was having to kind of adapt to those circumstances. And then all of a sudden, my goodness, they're here. So maybe some of these things I had done, I wouldn't have done if I knew they were coming tomorrow or something like that. I think it's really interesting. I think I wasn't sure. I think I knew they were going to do some kind of flashback, but I wasn't sure if it would be like a greater part of the episode. But they just kind of went over it in broader strokes, which I thought was kind of interesting. But yeah, I wonder if we'll find out more about what those things Burnham had to do would be, or if we'll see that in novels or comics or something like that. So I guess we'll have to see. But Brendan, what do you think about kind of that flashback sequence at the beginning?
Well, I think this is really interesting because, you know, Burnham really seems to have a sense of calm about her right now.
Yes.
You know, and even in that conversation that she had in the hallway with Philippa later on, like, Philippa's, like, looking at her and reading, like, you may not even fit in Starfleet anymore. you know, and I think that kind of plays into the decision of her giving up the captaincy. And, you know, so I'm looking forward to seeing where they're going to be going with her character. I kind of like this change. I think this is really interesting. But speaking of the reunion sequence, I wanted to know and get your guys' impression on the way that Giorgio was looking at her when she beamed aboard. Like, she kind of gave her this side look and then like just walked away. And I'm like, oh, what's that about?
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to think about that. I mean, Darsa or Chrissie, do you have any thoughts on that? Because it was very clear, like, Giorgio was in, like, the back of the room when everybody was crowding around Burnham and then kind of gave a look and just walked away. What do you make of that?
Well, I think maybe she could read her very well and was like, something is different about you.
Yeah.
But it seems later that Giorgio is almost saying there's something that she likes that's different about Burnham because she got to taste this freedom, and isn't that so great? But now you don't have that. Like, I actually wrote in my notes about this episode, Burnham seems lighter, but something still weighs on her. But like, I think Sonequa Martin Green did a great job of showing that there did seem to be like almost like Zen-like calm and lightness, while at the same time there was still this stuff like weighing on her. And I don't quite know what to make of it yet.
Well, Giorgio was so adamant about finding her. And, you know, you start to wonder why. I think I mentioned this last week about, does she have some kind of plans, you know, to go into the future Section 31, or is she genuinely concerned for Michael? And so that look in the transporter room could be genuine concern, could be, it didn't feel positive. It didn't feel like, oh my, I'm so relieved to see you. You're still alive, you're healthy, and, you know, all of that. But I could see her walking away if she was feeling like she was going to have a more emotional reaction. So, a little bit of that.
Based on what you guys have actually just said here, I think that this actually relates to something that happens later in the episode. I think you might be right, Darsa, in that she immediately sensed something different about Burnham. And then that played into why she was the one who beamed Book over. Because she knew she'd been with Book for that long and was like, okay, why has this person affected Burnham so much? So, yeah, that's...
I could see that, but the thing that's also going on for Giorgio is Burnham is basically like the adopted daughter that she had in the mirror universe, but not, because it's actually a different kind of person. So I almost feel, as I'm thinking about it, that it's like still feeling that loss of like, I wish this was the person that I knew in my own universe. I care for them and there's similarities, but they're still kind of different, and maybe there's an uneasiness. I don't know.
Well, remember, the person in her universe betrayed her.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
Betrayed her to Lorca.
Yeah.
So so it's almost like she's got this fondness for the person that she wished her own Burnham would be, like almost like this Burnham's better than her own Burnham because her own Burnham turned out to be a traitor, right? So yeah,
okay.
And maybe now
that's interesting. Yeah,
maybe now she's concerned that this Burnham has the capacity to betray her where she didn't before.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe she's seeing something that she saw in her own Burnham.
Yeah. There is something that's really interesting about that Burnham-Giorgio relationship. I don't know where they're going with it, but it's just kind of interesting and feels like unusual. So, okay. So we kind of went from the flashback to the reunion to Giorgio, but I often get emotional in Star Trek episodes, and I admit that when they had the kind of reunion and they're all hugging each other, I was shedding a tear. I thought it was because it felt like for Burnham it's been a year, for the Discovery crew sure it's been less time, but for us it's been like 18 months of waiting for these people to get together, and that's what I was feeling as well. I don't know if you guys have other thoughts about kind of the reunion that's happening and how people are kind of adjusting to each other on the ship.
Well, I guess the only thing that I have, and it's like it's minor, is that it's weird to me that the Discovery crew is so emotional about seeing Burnham again because it's only been a few hours. Burnham, sure, because it's been a year, but for them, they came out, crash landed, did that stuff last week with the Jake Weber guy, Zara or whatever his name was.
Yeah.
Got off, and there's Burnham.
Yeah, it's been a relatively short period of time. However, I think that when they got there and they found that Burnham wasn't there as they anticipated, they were thinking that maybe she would be lost and they might never see her again. So I could see that, even if it's a short period of time. Like, let's say, for example, you were thinking someone really important in your life was going to be somewhere and they don't, show up for 24 hours. You're going to be really worried and be really emotional when you're reunited with them, I think. So I could see it making sense.
And time is very relative, where it can seem to them like more time has gone by because they were just going through all of this stuff, and having that realization that everybody that they knew in the past have been long dead. So this is the only other person they know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And well, I mean, that gets to something that I really liked, which is the scene with Tilly, who's acknowledging, like, her mom is dead, her cousins are dead, everyone that she's ever known, which is, I think, a stand-in for what everyone on the ship would probably be experiencing. And you just think about that situation where it feels like it wasn't that long ago that you saw people that you know and love, and they've all been dead for a long time. I just can't even imagine what that's like. So I really like that they kind of acknowledged that and didn't gloss over that, because that was standing in for how everybody must feel on the ship, right? So
it reminded me of Battlestar Galactica with them putting the stuff on the wall, like the newer Battlestar Galactica. They do that they started it out as like a, have you seen this person? And then it turned into a remembrance of the people who have died. Yeah. They would put photos and things like that up on the wall.
Yeah, it seems like, so those badges that Tilly's looking at, that must be people that have died, right?
Right.
Yeah. Which is, wow. Yeah, I thought that was a powerful kind of symbol of that. Sorry, let's go back and talk about something else. We talked about it a little bit, but Saru becoming kind of the captain of Discovery, which I just love that they're kind of acknowledging that. But where do we think that that's kind of going from here? I think that he's shown that he is a great captain, and now this is an acknowledgement of that. And in this episode, there's kind of a back and forth. Maybe we'll talk a little about it, but the Burnham-Saru relationship, there's been a bit of a back and forth between them, whether they kind of can trust or not. And in the end of the episode, Burnham agrees to be the first officer. But like, thoughts on like Saru being confirmed as captain, and maybe the Saru-Burnham relationship, which I think has some complexities going all the way back to the first episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that we can see parallels with Voyager when Janeway chose Chakotay as her first officer, because he was captain for the Maquis on his own ship, and they had to work together. So it was a strategic move for her to choose him as her first officer. And I think that Burnham recognizing that Saru really is the embodiment of all things that are Federation and Starfleet right now, how important it is for him to remain captain. And it is also important for her to be first officer, because she has been in this area longer, for a whole year. Even if there's going to be things that she did without telling him in the episode, she knows how things work here. So she's better equipped to handle those situations, just like Chakotay was better equipped to handle the members on Voyager that were Maquis.
That's a good point. And of course, it's not exactly an analogy, but it also makes me think of Neelix and Voyager as well, where it's like, I know this area of space, I know what's going on. Like, right, like in a way, Burnham's going to be a bit of a guide to kind of what's going on. And because over the course of a year, she's probably gotten to know a lot of different courier routes and planets and species and things that are going on. But that's a really great point, that Saru does need somebody that kind of knows the territory that's out there, right? Yeah.
I didn't get when Saru turns to Burnham and is like, I'm questioning your judgment. And so when Burnham gave him that look like, like, I was actually giving that look as well. I'm like, like, how, I don't get...
Was that after Burnham executed the plan to take the book ship and do all that stuff? Was it after that?
No, it was before that. It was right at the beginning when she was talking about putting the dilithium on Book's ship before they jumped to Earth. right? And he said he's questioning her judgment because, and honestly, it was weird, like the mixture. I've had this a couple of times with Saru's dialogue. Like, I love Saru; he's my favorite character. But the way Doug Jones delivers some of the lines and the way that some of the lines are written, it wasn't very clear to me. It actually took me 3 viewings to understand that what he was saying. I don't have it written down. I wish I did, but part of it was because she didn't fight for her command, is why he's questioning her judgment. That's the impression that I got from that conversation.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think about it much before, but I think what's going on there is that Burnham has had this experience with this guy Book, who Saru knows nothing about, doesn't know whether to trust or not. And it seems like Burnham not fighting for command of the Discovery might be an indication to Saru that some more of her loyalty lies with Book, and maybe it's hard to tell where her loyalty is or what she might do, and maybe questioning her judgment with being along with this unknown kind of person. And also I think part of what happens is that Burnham is like, yeah, let's put all the dilithium on Book's ship. And I think Saru questions that and has to modify that and say, only if it's in the shuttle bay under guard and he does not get at the ship. So I don't know.
But that was Burnham's suggestion. But again, it's only been a few hours for them that they haven't seen her. They've just trusted her enough to jump 930 years in the future. And even in this episode, when she takes Book's ship with all the dilithium, he's like, hey, this is Burnham and we totally trust her, right? She's never screwed us over before.
I don't know. It didn't bother me. I thought it was something like Saru got this feeling of uneasiness with Burnham that his instinct was telling him, but later is like, this is already happening. I need to trust the situation. Yeah. I don't know. Darsa, Chrissie, what do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it might have been just a few hours, but for her to make a decision, like not wanting to fight for the role of being captain when that was something that he absolutely would have expected, that was probably a bit of a shock to him because he remembers the Burnham from just a few hours ago, not the Burnham that's been without them for a whole year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can see that.
And she made the decision for him almost. They had the intention of having a discussion about it, or further discussion about it, and then she just says, "Nope, it's you. I don't want it." And as much as somebody might want something, that can be disconcerting to just have it handed to you when you're expecting to have to fight for it.
Okay. So. Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. There's an interesting dynamic that's going on there that I think they'll continue to explore.
For sure.
So I guess I want to ask, as far as any of kind of the crew dynamics that we see in that first part of the episode, just wanted to see if there are other thoughts on that, because the next thing I was going to go to is kind of what they find of Earth in the 32nd century, but any thoughts kind of before that?
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm devastated that Pike's table is destroyed like that. That thing was beautiful, beautiful table.
It was.
That's just a tragedy.
Yeah, I think there was a shot last week where they showed it destroyed, and nobody has cleaned it up in the meantime. It's sad.
Well, it's been 5 minutes.
Beautiful, beautiful table.
We passed the scene earlier, but I did want to say, okay, is it a stereotype that we got 2 women crying over cake, talking about cake here?
They're not crying over the cake. They're crying over each other. and what they've lost.
They're crying and they're talking about cake. I don't know. I'm just like, wait a minute. This doesn't seem right. So,
well,
I don't know. It didn't strike me as that.
I can see where you're coming from with that. And I joked in our messenger that if it had only been cheesecake, we could have made a Golden Girls reference and called it good. But can't do that. So if she had said, I don't know, spaghetti, would you have thought that stereotypical?
No, I wouldn't have.
Yeah. So I don't think she's grasping at straws. She's like, what is the same? And I started thinking about this like, okay, so we're talking 900 years, so let's go back to 1100. How many things that existed in 1100 still exist now in a form that you would recognize them? Yeah, not even the language does.
Did they have cake that we would... Chrissie, you have to tell us. Did they have cake? Like
they have cake. It probably wouldn't be as sweet as you would want it to be, but yeah, of course they had cake. The Romans invented cake, but that's a whole other thing. I believe.
I'm sure they had bacon too. They could have done bacon as Eternal, and I would have been okay with that.
That is true as well.
Know.
But when are we at the point where Starfleet's
I think
got
Burnham's
artificial
a
meat?
vegetarian.
I think she is.
I
Yes.
think she'd have to be on Vulcan. Yeah. So I completely see where you're coming from, and like one step beyond that, if they had said chocolate cake, I would have been like, yeah, that's just ridiculous. Okay.
Then we would have been paying homage to Troy.
Very true,
Right.
though.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
So.
There was a Troy cake, though.
Yeah.
So I completely see where
Well,
you're coming from,
you know.
but I think in this case, probably not.
There does seem to be a bit of a Star Trek fixation with cake, because we did see cake in Picard. It was kind of important. But, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Brandon, because I hadn't thought of it.
It's like the soup in the new Ghostbusters. Okay, thank you. One person knows what I'm talking about. Good. There's soup. Anyway, okay. Lots of things to live for.
All right. So, okay, so let's talk about what they find for Earth. I mean, I was excited, first of all, that they would be going to Earth. It would be interesting to see what was there. And as I mentioned before, I think what we find is an Earth that is very insular, very much defense-oriented, but seems to be pretty nice when you get to the planet. So I'm just curious first, like, when we see Earth the way it is, and this, United Earth Defense Force and kind of the hostile reception that they get, I want to see if that was a surprise or if you expected something else. Darsa?
Well, there was all this talk about Earth being much farther away from some of these other areas, but we also knew that the Federation was mostly gone. So I guess I was hoping Earth would still be the same, but I was also not surprised. It was nice when they were at the Academy, and I was wondering, do they still have the same groundskeeper?
maybe they have like a really advanced Boothby hologram that takes care of the grounds now. But
I hope so.
I love it. I gotta say, I was disappointed they didn't do a close up of the tree, and we didn't see an engraving that said JLP plus AF.
I have that in my notes.
Really
is this the AF tree? Of course, if you think about how big it was and how it's grown, I'm sure that would have grown out of the
There would have been this
by now.
massive AF.
Or that.
Wow. But yeah, I mean, okay, since we're talking about the tree, I like that they chose a tree because it is one of those things that's one of the more longer lived natural organisms. You can have trees that live thousands of years. So I thought that was really cool. And I think it's fun that they had like a behind the scenes thing where you see that it was actually just like a like kind of rounded green screen thing that they were all next to, and they just put the tree in later. But
well, it wasn't very tall. So like, it's not one of those, like, this is in California. Right, yeah. So it's not one of those redwoods, those giant redwoods. It's just a different kind of a tree.
It's a different kind of tree.
But like those giant redwoods, I know can live like thousands of years. As long as they're not being burnt down by global warming and whatnot.
Yeah.
But
actually, the I think the longest lived tree in the world is in California. I think it's somewhere in Southern California, bristlecone pine that's over 5,000 years old. So,
and there's that one that they put the road through. If you've seen the pictures of that, I think that's a sequoia or a redwood.
I think so. Probably. I think when I was a kid, we drove through one of those, and at the time I was like, "Yay, this is cool!" But now I'm like, "Oh, that's really bad." They just hollowed
better
out
than
the
cutting
tree.
it down completely. I guess couldn't go
okay.
around.
So going back to the question. So it sounds like, Darsa, like you were hoping for something, but not too surprised that it kind of turned out the way that it did, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I was watching this, I went back to something that our friend Russell Skeet said when we had him on for the first one. So the way that they were talking and whatnot, I know that we're in the future, but it felt like not only we're in the future, but this is one of the ways that this is how the Federation is represented in an alternate future. He kind of had this tone of like an alternate timeline kind of thing. And that's the impression that I got from it. So it led me back to thinking about what Russell said and how he thinks that they're going to try and go back in time and fix this and prevent the burn and stuff like that. So it was just, I'm not sure that that's where they're going to go, but I was definitely thinking about it when we first got Cap'n and Doye on the screen.
Yeah. It's really interesting you say that, because for me, instead of thinking of it as almost like an alternate future, I thought of it almost like an alternate past, because we see in Enterprise in the 22nd century, you have the United Earth, right? And then you have Starfleet going out and exploring, but it felt almost like an alternate version of what you could have had in the 22nd century, where they're more insular, because like we're not seeing the Federation, we're seeing United Earth, which we've last really seen in Enterprise. So it caused me to think back to the past, actually. Mm-hmm. But yeah. But were you surprised at what you saw, Brandon?
I was, because we got that message from that admiral, right? That 12-year-old message. So I was expecting this pocket Starfleet civilization to be there. Mm-hmm. So I was actually surprised that there was nothing there at all. And I mean, jumping a little bit ahead, when Ndoye says no one knows where the Federation has gone, I'm like, oh man, like where are they? What's going on? Because they left, right? So I'm so intrigued by just that one line. I want to know where the Federation has gone, and I know that we're going to see them this season some point.
Yeah, for sure.
So
don't let me forget, but I have a theory about where they've gone. That
is it Trill?
I think is no. And don't keep guessing. So Chrissy, like, were you surprised when you saw what kind of Earth in the 32nd century is like?
Yes and no. You know, I wasn't expecting... I was hoping that there'd be, like, underground Federation. And I did figure it would be not as influential on the planet as it is, as we're accustomed to in the 24th century and the 23rd century. But I was not... It wasn't terribly surprising to me that it wasn't there. But I think there's got to be remnants of it somewhere, even if it's just independent people, because, you know, the Starfleet Academy grounds appear to be relatively untouched. You know, did they turn it into the United Earth headquarters or something? Or is it being maintained as a school for something else? Or is it just, it's there?
It's a Starbucks.
It's a giant office park.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It could be. Why not? But
I like that it wasn't like the Federation was there and it was Starfleet Academy or something, because a ton of stuff changes in 900 years, right? Like any place on Earth, what was there 900 years ago is probably quite different, right?
Mostly.
Yeah. Mostly.
But, and Notre Dame would still be, in terms of just like buildings like that. And of course, Notre Dame has changed. Not even counting the fire last 2 years ago, whenever that was. Oxford was established by 900 years ago, not for long, but it was. So you do have some things that are consistent. I was actually surprised that Earth was united still.
Interesting.
And I'm wondering if it is, or if that's just what we're being told. So, because we've seen people with North American accents, which I realize everybody has a North American accent on there, but if, you know.
Well, I mean, the Captain Ndoye that they encounter, I know it's played by a South African actor, and I think is meant to be from that kind of area, so I'm not sure what you mean. It seemed like somebody...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I guess I wasn't paying good enough attention. Forget that I said that. Just go, never mind.
No, it's okay. And I only really thought about that a little bit because I think on the Ready Room program that Will Wheaton does, I think they were talking about the actor that played that role, and it was going to be like their last audition, and they were thinking of like not acting anymore, but then they got this role and it kind of revitalized how they thought about acting, which is cool.
Oh, okay.
Nice. But it was somebody that came in from South Africa. Anyway,
cool. Right.
Owasaken had the same kind of story. I heard her at STLV, and she said the same thing. She's like, I was ready to give up on acting. I did this audition, and they hired me on Discovery.
Yeah. I mean,
That's awesome.
It's amazing. And yeah. So, but like, I guess I didn't know what to anticipate. I was like, we'll see if there's a Federation pocket or maybe not. I actually liked that it was still a united Earth, because it kind of tells you that just because a planet might be united doesn't mean that they have the best of circumstances or that they have the most open viewpoint, right? Like we've often seen in Star Trek, like, to be a part of the Federation, you need to be united, at peace, and all this kind of stuff. And it seems like, at least from what we've seen, there's peace on the planet, but then there's this kind of outside stuff where people are raiding them and they have like a planet-wide shield. So let's talk about the raiders a little bit. So I think that we do find out, I think, like we've already talked about, that these raiders are actually from Titan, and they're under these really, really difficult circumstances, and the first thing that they tried to do is to get help from Earth, and their ship was destroyed. So I think it's really interesting, and like the Earth doesn't really know what's going on. And actually, something I was listening to Mike Wong on the Strange New Worlds podcast point out, like, even right now, we would be able to tell from a telescope on Earth that there's something going on Titan like that. So it means they weren't even looking or didn't even like care. They were just so focused on like what was going on around them. So it felt like it was very, sad for these people on Titan. But I just wanted to get an idea of just kind of that whole thing with the raiders and what we find out, what you think. So Darsa, and feel free to talk about whatever sciencey stuff about Titan you want to talk about.
Please.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense that they had to have some kind of combustion happen in order for them to need this help, because we do have all this hydrocarbon on Titan. It's like all hydrocarbons, but you have to have something to set a combustion, like oxygen, and they're on Titan. They're going to need oxygen to breathe.
Right.
And a lot of the ways in which we could do some kind of some kind of electrolysis to create oxygen from the water ice on Titan, or if we were to do that on Earth, it would be a lot easier than doing it on Titan, meaning that it would be we use less energy to make it, because we have a higher gravity, we have faster surface wind speeds, we're closer to the sun. But those type of ways on Titan would be very difficult. So they would need to use the dilithium to be able to generate oxygen. And then when there's the burn, that and all this dilithium is just exploding, that could very much cause a problem where now they're going to have that catalyst that destroys a third of their civilization, and they no longer have the dilithium to create their oxygen. So they can go back to these alternative means like hydrolysis of water or turbines or solar, but they have to use up more of their resources in burning the hydrocarbons to create the oxygen they need. So it's really only a matter of time until they'd run out, even though there's a lot of hydrocarbons on Titan. And it's also just not sustainable, because they can really only get the most basic of needs. And if there is a lot of people, like when Burnham scanned their ships and was like, wow, you have a lot of people on here for raiders, that's really scary to have just this huge need for something, and the place you think you could go to for help does not care about you. So what do you do when you need to survive? You have to do these things. And gosh, I just, part of me was like thinking from both a scientist and a human perspective, like, yeah, it'd be nice to be able to do this, but without dilithium, how are they going to be able to do this there?
Right. Actually, that brings up something in my mind, a line that Saru has that made me wonder, because I think we're told in the burn before that, dilithium exploded. And when Saru's being questioned by Captain Ndoye, I think it's like, well, how do you still have dilithium? And Saru just says, we weren't at warp at the time. So it makes me wonder if he's just, I don't know, making it up or Burnham's told him something. But then on Titan, if they had this issue with it exploding, did they have some stuff that was at warp, or is it not really the case and it's been so long that they don't really know what happened? I don't know. It just brought a thought into my head about that line.
Yeah, I guess I'm not entirely sure exactly why the explosion occurred. I was like, could it have been related to this, or if they had something nearby that caused something, but nevertheless, they had this explosion, and now dilithium is in short supply, and they need the dilithium in order to create the oxygen they need to survive.
Yeah.
I guess I was always under the impression that all of the energy most of the energy that's being produced in the Federation is done through some equivalent of a warp core. And so that is your energy generation source, whether or not you're going around at warp with it or just, powering Paris's lights.
Yeah,
but I might be
think
wrong.
So. some kind of matter-antimatter reaction that dilithium is regulating in some way, right?
Yeah. They could absolutely do that. Since they don't want to power things from singularities like the Romulans do.
Yeah, that's a question that came up for us actually in the previous episode. Like, they're talking about dilithium, but what about the singularity drives of the Romulans? So,
well, if they had things happen like, I believe that, but then if it's similar to Picard's timeline, then there's not as many Romulans anymore, and perhaps some of that technology got lost without them.
That's a possibility, because they were definitely devastated with Romulus exploding, for sure.
This is powered by a black hole.
So Brendan, like, what did you think about these Raiders and Titan and all that stuff? I know you said you liked the kind of resolution and the dialogue they have and all of that, but like, as you were watching it, like, what were you kind of thinking about these Raiders?
Well, it begs the question. I mean, like, how long has this fighting been going on? Because, have they been fighting for the entire, 130 years since the burn? Have they been doing this and they have nothing else to do? I mean, if Earth has this entire network around it, like this shield, like, it's not like these little raiders are going to be able to penetrate that. So, like, why are they even attacking Earth? So
I guess it's just whenever a ship might show up or something. I don't know.
Which I don't get the impression is very often. But I mean, like, when that captain took off or when Georgiou kicked his mask off, I guess, or whatever it was, like, he didn't look very healthy. Like, he looked very sick
he looked
and whatnot.
Very, very bad. Yeah.
Very pale, very gray skin kind of thing. But which I love this actor. He was on Hell on Wheels.
Yes.
Christopher Heyerdahl, is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as the Swede. Yeah. So there's lots of Star Trek actors on the Hell on Wheels. We had O'Brien and we had Anson Mount.
That's right. I mean, and I have to say, I mean, it's a relatively small part for him, but he managed to really put in there, like, how kind of exhausted they are and how difficult it is just into how he was saying the lines. I thought that was really effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if they're from Titan, the gravity on Titan is so much lower than that of Earth, like 1/7. If they do not have the energy to they really need the minimal stuff, so artificial gravity may not be the biggest concern for them, or gravity that matches that of Earth's. So your muscle density and everything, that's not going to be the same as if you were born on Earth. It's very similar to some things that were brought up in Arthur C. Clarke's novel Imperial Earth, where there's a colony on Titan and somebody goes to visit Earth, but first he has to, like, train and carry around weights so that he'll be able to just go for a walk on Earth.
That's a great point. Like, if they're used to Titan's gravity, or they have something similar on the ship, or even maybe they don't have any artificial gravity and they're just floating around in the ship, then to come into Discovery, it would be a real shock, right? Yeah. Wow, that's I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah, neither did I. That's a good point.
So before we move on from this, I do have a question about the choice that Saru has made, and I don't understand this choice, okay? I don't understand why they're not telling the truth about when they're from. Everybody's just figuring it out anyways. Why are they still hiding this? To the point where Stamets is just walking down the corridor with a deer and is like, yeah, we're from 2258.
Okay, I want to talk about that a little bit, because I did think about that. And I think there's a little bit different situation with a deer, and we'll talk more about a deer in a bit. But I think what's going on is they've come from a time in the past, which I'm sure can always be a shock, or people don't know what to make of it or what your motives are or whatever. Plus, they have this sphere data that's still within Discovery and could still be dangerous in some way. As far as I know, they still have it.
I don't think they do. I think that's all gone. That
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I don't remember.
When would they have done that?
They do, because Saru references it.
Saru consults the sphere data, right?
Yeah.
In this episode. So they still have that. So, like, I was thinking also, like, what if they just came clean with them and they were like, hey, here's our situation. But maybe he was thinking they would be even more suspicious of what's going on. And I think for what's going on with Adira, Adira has been caught in this sabotage, and so Stamets has something on them. So I think that's maybe a different situation. But I agree, it's a little bit like, do they need to do
It's not
that?
like there's a temporal prime directive, because even he's like, oh, we're the descendants, and she's like, are you sure? Because your ship looks like it's from 2300 here, right? And it looks like it's in pretty good shape, like,
Yeah,
I don't know, like, it's just odd that they're still maintaining this.
I can see that, and I don't know from like Ndoya and the United Earth People's perspective if they're like, yeah, we're not so sure about that, but let's just move on. I don't know. What do you think, Chrissy?
That made perfect sense to me. It's, are you going to go knock on the door without knowing who's there, how they're going to react, what's going on, especially since you've been put in a position where they consider you threatening? Are you going to say, yeah, we're time travelers, we're from the past? Or are you going to say, no, we have had this long journey because of this thing that has affected everyone, and that also produces sympathy on the part of the people who are hearing it, and so maybe they're a little more likely to be of aid? I did get the impression by the end of the episode that they were not maintaining that fiction, though.
Yeah.
So
I'm wondering if that'll continue. I don't know. It feels really odd to me that it's like, even last week, they're from the past. They're 900 years out of date. Most people are probably just going to be like, you don't have anything for me if you don't have dilithium, right? They might want the dilithium if they have it, but even the Earth people here, they don't even bat an eye when Earth finds out that they've got dilithium on the ship, So I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Darsa, any thoughts on that, on their little fiction that they're telling?
Well, some of that could be that you're not sure how people are going to react to it. But then once they understand that, wow, people here do not have dilithium and we have a whole bunch, and if they find out what timeline we're from, they're going to know, you guys probably got a bit of storage of dilithium, and then everybody would be after you. And that could be quite scary, that they still have to protect themselves.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the possibility, especially if they know about what the Discovery has with their spore drive, which I think they could probably calibrate to go to a different time, that could be really dangerous, and they could be like, oh, let's go back to the past when there's a ton of dilithium and take it forward into the future. So I could kind of see it, although it is a fairly thin excuse.
Even going back to the last episode, they're just like, right off the bat, they're just like, we're not going to tell them we're from the past. And it's like, I don't know, they still figured it out pretty quick.
Let me ask you this question, Brandon. You're thrown 930 years into the future. Are you going to concoct a story, or are you going to tell them you're from the past and see what happens? I'm going
to tell them the truth, because if I'm lying and saying that I'm from the descendants, then now I have to keep track of my lies, and I'm going to have to start lying about other things, such as, why didn't your ship blow up? Oh, because we just happened to not be at warp, not knowing whether or not that's a reasonable explanation for why his ship didn't blow up, right? Like, he's just randomly throwing stuff out to see if it's going to work. So right. I'm going to be like, you know what? But I'm also from Canada, right? So, like, we're like honest and polite people, right? So
you're like, oh, you're from the past? We'll throw you in prison, Brandon. Sorry.
Or an asylum.
Okay, all right. But I mean, I think it's a valid question, but I'm kind of willing to go with it. Go ahead.
One other thing just occurred to me. I do think he came up with that on the fly. I don't think he was intending to do that, because if you think about it, if they had hailed Earth and gotten a response from Starfleet or some derivation of the Federation and Starfleet, there are... what's the word I'm looking for? There's processes in place to deal with people out of time, right? There's a whole entity, the DTI, that's there to deal with these situations. So telling Starfleet the reality of it is not as dangerous as telling this person who knows, we don't know. So I'm sure when they meet, they have met the Admiral, kind of, but I'm sure when they meet the other pieces of the Federation, they're not going to be lying about who they are or when they're from.
I could see that.
Brand, I'm curious, if someone from 1100 came up to you and said, hey, I'm from the past, how would you react?
Well, I mean, the reaction would be like, that would be, that's impossible. But in the 32nd century, they do know time travel is possible, so it's a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. We probably wouldn't even understand them. That's the other thing that bothers me there. It's only taken care of by the universal translator. So
yeah, you have to look past that a little bit because language would probably be pretty different in the 32nd century.
All of a sudden, we'd be looking for somebody who could speak really good Latin if the person was from Europe and well educated.
Okay, can we move on to Mini Chrissie now?
Oh, don't say that. Yes, let's talk about Adira. And actually, before we talk general impressions about Adira or whatever, I just want to go over like a couple of things about the character and maybe clear up one thing before we even start. Okay, so when the character of Adira was announced, played by the actor Blue Del Barrio, it was announced this would be the first non-binary actor to play a character in Star Trek, right? So you go into this episode knowing that, and during the episode, Adira is referred to as she several times, right? And so that question came up. There was actually, I just want to quote a little bit from an interview that Blue Del Barrio, the actor who played Adira, said to kind of go over this, because I think it's really interesting and gives some interesting context. And this is kind of a quote from, let's see, it's an interview recently with Entertainment Tonight. And so the direct quote is, "The use of those pronouns were really important for me. I care a lot about an accurate representation of Adira and trans representation especially. Because I wasn't yet fully out to a lot of my family and some of my friends still, I didn't feel comfortable right off the bat having everyone use they-them pronouns for Adira because I wasn't out to everyone yet. So I wanted to wait until I really was, until I was in a place where I could talk to my family and my friends and tell them who I was. At that point, I could then feel this is now the accurate way for me to represent Adira on screen as well because I'm there too. I didn't want to rush it. I didn't want to put pressure on myself. I just wanted it to be as honest as possible because there are so few trans characters on screen, and I wanted to make this character as transparent to my own experience as possible because we don't see a lot of trans characters on screen who are questioning, who are maybe not completely out talking to everyone about how they're feeling about themselves. There's so much pressure in the media for us to be 100% confident and really sure about ourselves, so the people watching the shows don't question us. But there are so many people who struggle with their identity, and I wanted to at least have one character on screen do that. Be able to see someone go from keeping everything inside to them sharing because that's what everyone has to do." So anyway, I thought that was really interesting, and I think there are other parts where that'll come into the plot, kind of Adira coming out to people as non-binary in this character in this universe. So I just wanted to go over that because I think a question came up in my mind as I was watching it, and then I saw this interview. I was like, oh yeah, interesting. But, so let's talk about Adira.
Can I
now
add
and get
a question to this?
Sure.
Because I'm sure that we have listeners that have this question as well, and like I'm learning this stuff as I go along, and I'm doing the best I can. I don't understand the they them, because to me they and them still sounds plural, and I still use that for like a group of people, like over there they're doing this, them are doing that thing. I know that's not good English that I just said, but in general. So I'm still struggling to understand to apply this plural sounding word to an individual.
Well, then we do have singular words such as Z, Zer, Zem with a Z in front. But for some people, including myself, using they, them kind of encapsulates that I do not feel like I am a specific gender. I feel like I am multiple genders. So perhaps that feeling as though you have multiple identities as far as your gender is concerned, or you can be fluid, then using they, them kind of helps brings that together. I know there's some native terms for this where they would say that you are two spirits if you are both male and female, whether that is biologically or that is how you identify. Yeah.
I think it's really... Go ahead.
I read a good explanation of this once, that it was basically, we already use they and them in a singular, we just don't think of it that way. And the example they gave was, you say to one of your friends, say, I saw somebody you know yesterday, and then your immediate response would be, oh, what did they say? Because you don't know who they're talking about. So once I had that, it just clicked in my head. It made perfect sense. So... Yeah. I don't know if that helps, but
yeah. And I mean, I think it's really great to have a character like this because we can talk about something we haven't really talked as much about in Star Trek before and asked these questions and try to come to a greater understanding. I know for me, it was more recently, probably in the last couple of years, that I even became aware of the concept of a non-binary gender, and I think that might be the case for a lot of people. So
yeah, me too, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the character of Adira, who we're introduced to as part of the United Earth Defense Force. I have to make sure to keep it straight and think about it because I'm used to talking about Starfleet. But so it's part of the United Earth Defense Force, part of this kind of inspection that's going on and seems to be kind of messing with some stuff. We find out has sabotaged something so that people can't beam out. And then Stamets reveals later kind of who the people of the Discovery are and where they're from. But we find out Adira is 16, which is pretty young. And we also find out, I think, as you mentioned, Brandon, that this Admiral Senatal, who sent out this distress signal 12 years ago, is actually Adira in the form of a Trill symbiont that they were joined with
right
a couple years ago, I guess. So pretty new. So that's kind of like the overview of the character. But this is our kind of real introduction to the character in this episode. And Darsa, what was your thoughts or impressions on Adira as a character?
I was very excited. I love the idea of having a non-binary character, and I was confused when everyone was referring to Adira as she. And Blue's interview makes a lot of sense about being true to how people are referring to you now. But I would also like to imagine that in the future, we know better than to assume somebody's gender. So would be nice. That's true. And they make an assumption, I think Stamets does, without hearing anyone else say anything. So yeah, they are kind of making an assumption. I wonder how much it'll play into it with Adira being joined to a Trill symbiont and maybe feeling a certain gender identity before that and a different one when being joined, right? I think it might go there. That could go there. Gosh. And I guess a lot of people are wondering, what if this is the Dax symbiont? I think unless the name has changed from Dax to Tal for the symbiont in all those years, maybe not, but I don't know. It's a good question.
So I want to address that. So I don't think that this is the Dax symbiont, but I do think that we are going to see the Dax symbiont. I think that for a couple of reasons. Number one, because it's Dax and we'll get the Star Trek reference. But number two, last week on the show, we had a very special guest. We had John Jackson Miller on. And, John Jackson Miller said that there may be things in his book, Die Standing, that play out and we will be referred to back in season 3 of Star Trek Discovery. And Emily Dax?
I think Emily's in that one.
Is in that book.
Yeah.
And so, which is interesting because also in that book, Georgiou finds out that Daxes have symbionts, Trill have symbionts in them.
That's right.
And it's good that they called out the line here that Burnham did not know that Trills had symbionts in them, which is really cool. But I'm interested to see if they bring that up and if they will refer to the book if they do bring it up, because the Dax symbiont has met this Georgiou.
You are totally, and I had kind of forgotten. I mean, it's really cool that Dax is in that book, but I had totally forgotten that, and that would be really interesting because I think they are going to Trill next to try to, it's hinted at, get these memories that Adira is having trouble accessing. But yeah, that would be really interesting if Georgiou was sees someone who has a Dax symbiont, I knew someone that was Dax before, maybe. I don't know.
Or Dax remembering her.
Right.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about this, though, and the biggest question that I have, and this is not a question of what are they doing, this is a question of, oh boy, I can't wait to see what they're doing with this, is the fact that Adira is human.
Yes.
And the last time that we saw a human try and take on a symbiont, it didn't go so well.
No.
Right? With Riker in the episode The Host.
Yep.
Okay, so he couldn't take the symbiont. It wasn't stable within him.
Right.
So I think that's interesting that Adira has the symbiont inside themselves.
I was also thinking as well, I think we know from Deep Space Nine that when a host dies, the symbiont needs to be transplanted within a short period of time, a couple of days or something like that, right? So Adira might have been the only person around, the most compatible. Maybe on Earth they have a Trill specialist or something that can do this, and they've learned how to do it in the last 900 years or so. I don't know. But it's...
I don't think they know.
We do have the technology from the Delta Quadrant that was being brought back from the species dealing with the phage.
Oh, yeah.
The Vidians.
Oh, that's a good point.
To match up biology.
They did have very advanced medical technology, didn't they? Yeah.
But I also get the impression, based on the way Adira said it, that nobody knows that she's got this symbiont inside of them.
No.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because at the end she's like, yeah, this person's in me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm this person.
Right. And I think it must still be probably pretty confusing, and Adira can't access these memories, and I think will next week or the week after or something. But I thought what was interesting about the character of Adira as well was you see, like, in the scene where I think Stamets is walking into engineering and knows Adira is doing something, this theme that comes up in Jeff Russo's music, it's almost like a childlike kind of theme.
Oh, that was so weird.
I thought it was kind of interesting because the way it was done, it made me think of someone younger than 16 and that you would do that for. But also, like, in a way, if this is a person that's had this symbiont for like the last 2 years, they could almost feel like they're much younger than they are, especially if they can't access all those memories. But I don't know.
Yeah, that music when Stamets confronts Adira in the Jeffries tubes there, it's this weird jovial Pixar Disney kind of music, and it feels kind of like it's good music, but it feels kind of strange tonally with Star Trek. You know, it just kind of feels weird tonally.
Okay, interesting. Chrissie, like, impressions about Adira and Adira's scenes?
Yeah, I am very interested to know more, of course, about them, but also about the symbiont.
Yeah.
One of the things
I have to say, I don't know if everybody else felt like this, but it was a complete surprise for me that the Admiral was like in Adira and the symbiont. They totally I didn't see that coming.
So they kept that back very well without spoilers. Right, but Adira had seemingly quite an extensive knowledge of 23rd century technology, which
true.
Lends me to believe that the Tal symbiont is at least old enough to have dealt with that technology. So we're talking about a 9,000-year-old symbiont, 900-year-old symbiont. It has to be 1,000
plus. Yeah.
So there's a whole other level there,
and that's interesting because it made me think like there may be some things that Adira can kind of unconsciously access in order to do things like that, but can't consciously access the memories.
And here's another question for you. Have we actually met Adira yet?
In what way do you mean that?
I mean, is that Tal in her just having taken over? Not intentionally, not in a malicious way, but because we've seen that that's been an issue before.
Like with Esri. I think it's Adira because they said that she said herself that she's having trouble accessing the memories. Didn't they say that, or is that in the preview?
But I mean, it's also
they said that.
It's also like this mix of things, right? Like the person who's the host is different than the joined person because they have these memories, and so I think naturally you're seeing a combination of Adira and whatever can be accessed from the symbiont at this point. It'll be interesting when Adira accesses those memories, how the behavior of this person might change. I don't know. I think there's a lot of interesting possibilities.
Yeah. So. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but I could see the Tal symbiont looking at the situation and saying, okay, the only way I'm going to be able to get to where I need to be is with this. So.
Okay. Other thoughts? I know we've talked about it for a little while, but other thoughts that we have about Adira or anything where you think it might be going?
I think they're a great character, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they bring for this character's plot. I think that they are going to be one of my favorite additions to the show because I'm really liking what I'm seeing so far. I thought the scenes were a lot of fun. I will say that jealous and snotty Tilly is not a good look for her. So. But, I did like the scenes a lot with Adira, so.
Not the Wonderkund anymore, is she?
Yeah.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
I was...
go ahead.
Excuse me. I was very happy to see the continuity from the novels that the Trill had not told the Federation about the symbionts, even though they were members in the 23rd century. So that was very well done and is yet another reason to be so happy that they have brought in the authors from the novel verse for these things
Yeah.
because it's stuff that you can add in that if people have not read the novels, it's not a problem. Just
Yeah.
it's beautiful. I was so glad to see that.
Okay, awesome. Okay, maybe before we close out this section, Darsa, any other thoughts about Adira?
I'm just so excited.
Okay, yeah, I think we're really excited to see. I think also when Discovery does this and they bring in a new character who looks like they're going to be a main character, it's always exciting to like get to know them and see what they're like. And yeah, there's like an interesting energy that comes in because of that. Okay, so I think that we've talked about most of the things that I have here. Again, there is a theory that I have that I wanted to talk about, but no, before I do that, I just want to see if there are other things. Chrissie, you had something?
We mentioned Burnham. You said she's lighter, but there's a mystery to her as well. Mm-hmm. And as I was thinking about that, it occurs to me that this is the first time in her life where she has no expectations put on her. Before, it's not only the expectations of being Michael Burnham, Starfleet officer, all of that stuff that she has become consciously, okay, but there is the weight of having been raised by Sarek,
yes,
and what the expectations are of that. There is the weight of her relationship with Spock and all of the emotional entanglement that entails.
Yes.
There's the weight of her guilt about her parents' deaths, because until very recently she blamed herself in some way because she wanted to stay to see the what was it, a supernova? No, I don't remember.
Yes.
Yeah. She has the weight of her involvement in the Klingon War, her starting the Klingon War, you could almost say. I don't like to pin it all on her because,
but there are these things swirling around that she feels expectations.
And then she comes out of this with the weight of having saved all the things, like she says. Yes. But she walks onto Booker's ship, and the only expectation that he has of her is that she is aware of what has happened in relatively recent history, and that is immediately taken away. Okay. So at that point, his expectation of her is nothing. I don't know who you are. Don't hurt my cat. So she's a blank slate. And then she gets back to Discovery, and she can't be a blank slate anymore.
Right, because again, there are some of those expectations, but like almost at a meta level, it's like Burnham feels lighter, but I think the writers also feel lighter by going this far into the future, and they can kind of do what they want with it. So, which is
a lot of freedom going on right now. A lot of freedom for sure.
Yeah,
I think we didn't mention yet, but just as a touch, I think it's interesting to point out that. So I'm sorry, I did a rewatch of season 2 not that long ago, but I still don't remember that Michael Burnham's mom went back to the future. I could have sworn she died.
No,
but they don't know her, right?
And on Terra Elysium,
she contacted Terra Elysium, and they haven't heard of her mom. So are we going to see her mom again? Where did her mom go? Because Burnham and this ship, I was expecting this ship we would find out that it was the same planet, but they haven't even addressed that, so it's probably not important. But they didn't end up where they thought they were going to end up, so her mom probably didn't end up where she thought she was going to end up.
Remember where she ended up the first time she used the suit? Out in space. And depending on where she gets pulled back to, it's entirely possible that she got pulled back into that spot, and then she's dead immediately. Not to put too fine a point on it.
Terrible.
Well,
no, actually, I've got the solution.
All right.
Okay.
She showed up in space, and the exocomp from Lower Deck saved her. That's still floating out in space, and now they've got their own place.
Yeah, sure.
That exocomp had been floating in space for 900 years. I love it.
It's only 800.
Okay.
This is 100 century less. Makes all the difference.
Yeah, but they specifically call it out, and I think there is going to be some resolution where she'll find, oh, my mom died, or they'll come across her somewhere else. Like she clearly, I guess, landed somewhere other than Terra Elysium. So,
well, and
or could have landed there in a different year, earlier or later, right? I have
her mom's not even there yet. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
Actually, good point. Right.
Hey, maybe I can fold this into my theory, but go ahead.
Well, I'd like to know what Michael asked the people of Terra Elysium. What was her? I can't remember her mother's name now. I can't remember the mother's first name. Anyway.
Isn't it Gabriella?
Gabrielle, yeah.
Like
so
yeah,
did she send them a letter saying, I'd like to speak to Gabrielle Burnham? Or did she say, do you know about a red angel? Or did she say, hey, did
a
somebody
time traveler
random
stop by
show
recently?
Up? Yeah, so I think that's important because without this relatively quick communication, there's a very easy opportunity for misunderstanding. So.
Are you my mommy?
Yeah, I mean, she could have just
Who.
been like, "Hey, there's somebody I think that I know that traveled there by this name. Do you have anybody by that name? I'm sorry, we don't." It could have been that simple.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything else we want to? We'll definitely talk about final thoughts and canon connections and whatever. But
now I want to know your theory.
Things you want to know my theory? I know I've built it up. Hopefully it'll measure up. Okay, so here's something that I was thinking about after this episode. You get to Earth in the 32nd century. The Federation is not there. We're told they went somewhere else about a century ago or so, right? Somewhere shortly after the burn. Because they didn't want to be in a prominent place, right? That people would find them. And to me, that says, founding members of the Federation, Earth, Vulcan, Tellar, Andoria, whatever, right? Like, they don't want to be in a prominent place like that. But then if I look ahead to, I think it's episode 7, which has the extremely intriguing title Unification 3, which seems like it's going to be about Romulans in some way. I was thinking, what if the Federation had gone to relocate in the place people might least expect them to be, which is whatever remains of Romulan space, to start kind of a new Federation there, or for that to be their headquarters? What do you guys think about that?
Interesting.
I would maybe put it more likely on Vulcan, and then the Romulans and the Vulcans and the humans are there.
But if people knew that Vulcan was an important member of the Federation and they want to not attract attention, why would they go to one of the founding members? I think there are people that have come from this kind of remaining core of the Federation that include, humans and Vulcans and Tellarites and Andorians and all of that, going over there, and then they're working together with what remains of the Romulan people in this time, and that's the unification that happens.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Could be.
Okay.
Was one of the aliens that beamed on was a Tellarite? It looked like one of the aliens was a Tellarite.
I think so, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So I think they're still around. You guys are maybe less impressed with my theory than I thought you might be. That's
no,
okay.
I like you. No, I like your theory. I still think the unificationists would have gone back to Vulcan before the supernova, but that's not mutually exclusive, so it's fine.
But that would have been like 800 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
And a lot of stuff could have happened since then.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that, the Romulan supernova happened, the Romulan system was destroyed, but there are other parts of what would have been the Romulan Empire that I think it wouldn't have destroyed because it's a big empire, and some part of the remnant of that, that the Federation might have relocated there. And maybe Burnham's mother came sometime in the past and has helped to create this, and she's going to find her there.
Maybe they're on the absolute candor planet.
That would be funny.
Maybe they're working on another type of space travel drive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a point, because
propulsion technique.
Yeah, they're stuck with how far they can get without, or with few, dilithium crystals.
That's true, but
Mm-hmm. And if they're in the Romulan territory, maybe there's enough Romulans there that they're able to piece together some knowledge from the past about, well, here's how you can do this, powering it with this singularity.
Yeah. Oh, good point.
So, okay. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I hope we get some background as to what happened with that piece of space. Because I feel like the Federation might have just annexed it. And if not the Federation, the Klingon Empire would have. After the supernova, and with as bad as the relationship is, as we see in Picard, with all of these various governments.
Yeah, but I mean, there's so much that we need filled in, right? Like, what happened to the Klingon Empire? What happened to the Cardassian Union? And like all these big players, and what are they doing? And we don't know. I feel like we're going to find out more about that. But anyway, that's my theory. Okay,
I like it.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So one of the things that we like to talk about sometimes are canon connections. I don't know if there was a huge number of canon connections, but there were a couple of interesting things, I think. But guys, have any things that you want to call out for connections to other Star Trek, even other Discovery that we haven't talked about?
Just what we said there with the book connection about the not knowing the symbionts. I'm glad they made that connection, because I'm sorry, but I mean, Discovery's been pretty fast and free with which things they choose to be consistent on, and I mean, like, to me,
agree with that.
having Georgiou as in the Mirror Universe, and then in 1 week they're saying we'll never talk about this again, it's classified, to the next week of she's been like, hey everybody, Mirror Universe Georgiou here, I'm from the Mirror Universe, is like a little bit
to a select group of people, but okay.
A select group, like everybody on the ship and like everybody that she meets, yes.
It's not everybody in the galaxy.
Well, everybody, not everybody in the Discovery, but there seems to be a fairly large contingent of people on this Discovery who were on the Shenzhou. So they would know that it's not her.
But if we continue it into the books, which they are working on to be as canonical as they can, even in that dice standing, she's like, oh yeah, Mirror Georgiou right here.
That's still on my table, so I don't know. Yeah,
like she's just telling everybody that she is. So the fact that they've chosen now here to make, which I think Chrissie's right, I think this is a book-only thing that it was kept quiet. I don't remember them saying it in. Wait.
I mean, but in the first episode, I thought we were talking about something
the Trill.
different.
He's talking about the Trill, I think.
Yeah, in the first episode with the Trill, that's the TNG episode, the host, where they find out that the Trill have symbionts.
Yeah.
They didn't actually know that before that.
I forget about that because of the disco ball symbiont. So,
but yeah, no, they definitely didn't know that before, and it wasn't just the novel.
Yes, you're right. Sorry. You're right. No, yeah. So that's not just book, but I'm glad they kept that continuity.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and I'm shocked that Georgiou kept that secret and wasn't like joint species. So
okay, I'll just say I liked seeing the DOT-7s repairing the ship. That was nice.
Oh, Aubrey called that out when we watched it today. She's like, oh, it's the little robots, which are in the main title. I keep forgetting to bring that up. They're in the main title sequence.
Is that the DOT ship? Is that the DOT-7s or a different kind of robot? I don't know.
It looks like them.
Yeah.
Looks like
so a couple other things. The Earth Defense Force ships have quantum torpedoes, which we first saw in Star Trek First Contact, which is cool. The movie. Donatu-7 is not quite Donatu-5, but it made me think of it. The place, I think it's referenced in Trouble with Tribbles, where there was a Klingon Federation battle or something like that. Also something I really loved at the beginning, Burnham says it's stardate 865211.3, which is completely consistent with the stardates that start in the Next Generation, which it starts out as 41000 something like that for the first season of TNG. But if you take that forward for all those hundreds of years, you would get to 8652. Anyway, nice. I thought that was cool.
Nice.
Can I do my favorite canon connection?
Yeah, go ahead.
The telescope.
Oh, yes. The telescope. Yes, I love that he still had that. It was wonderful.
Yes, I love it. So that was so awesome. Just as he was slow, I knew that's what he was pulling out. As soon as he started to think, I'm like, oh, we're gonna see the telescope, aren't we? Oh, I love this. So
telescope is wonderful. Darsa, were there other things that you might have noticed that are references to other episodes, or not so much? Yeah, I don't think this one was very heavy with those, but
I think you covered all of them.
Okay.
I was more just geeking out over, oh my gosh, Titan.
Definitely, yeah. Anything you had, Chrissy?
Just the thing about the Trill. So. I will say about the DOT-7s, I'm very glad to see more robots. I think that's something, as strange as it sounds, has been lacking in all of Star Trek. That we've had this idea of, oh, there's a hole, a crack in the hull, we have to send an actual person out there to fix it, as opposed to having some kind of device. And I realize that's done for plot point, and I get it. But so I'm glad to see those.
The Federation has some killer union representation. We don't give those jobs to robots. People do those jobs.
You know what? You're right.
Well, in the 23rd and 24th century, you don't have to worry about that.
It's but it's a post-scarcity society. So what is it called? The future luxury space communism. What is that called?
What's his name? Sean O'Brien would be proud of the Union of the Federation.
Yes, there you go.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about some final thoughts about the episode. So Darsa, any final thoughts you want to talk about? People of Earth.
I think ending with the tree was very significant because oftentimes trees are a symbol of strength. Mm. And for that tree to have survived all this time, they talk about remembering it as when it was much smaller and saying that, this tree can survive and still grow, I think is a way of really pulling it back into the idea of the Federation, like we can still survive and we can grow back to how to greatness, like this tree has grown into such greatness.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah. I love that that's where they ended it, because it's a happy scene and it's the possibility of what can happen next and actually having some kind of connection to the past.
Yeah, because that reflects back to the scene with Tilly and Burnham, where they're like, "There's nothing here, everything's gone," and then they go back and it's like, "No, not everything's gone. This tree is still here." All of them had been there at one point. All the people that went down there.
But Discovery's keeping me in suspense. I want to know if the Gateway Arch and the Giza pyramids are still there, and they did not answer that in this episode.
The Gateway Arch, that's from 1159, right?
Yep.
No, that's the Millennium Gate. That's totally different.
What's the Gateway Arch?
The Gateway, it's an arch. It's a large arch structure in St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, that's
US.
the one in St. Louis. Okay,
Isn't it
the Millennium Gate is the thing that tells us. Wait, the Millennium Gate is the thing that tells us that Star Trek does not take place in the the timeline that we live in. Okay, that's what it tells me.
That and the lack of a third world war in the 90s. No, the Gateway Arch.
Well, they've tried to.
Yeah, I know they retcon that into some smaller fights.
They tried to do that, but you can't retcon the Millennium Gate.
No. I think the Gateway Arch marks where Lewis and Clark officially set out, but I'm not 100% on that.
Oh, is that what it is?
I feel like that's the case.
But Tilly has referenced that. I think Tilly even had like a snow globe in season 2 that had the Gateway Arch. It makes people think like maybe she's from St. Louis, but I don't know. Okay, so Brandon, final thoughts?
Last thing is, I can't wait. I need to see it. I need to have a scene with Saru and Detmer addressing her, her behavior that's going on right now and what's going on with her PTSD and whatnot, because, she was like outright, like almost defiant in this one here, and Saru was like getting upset with her in this episode of her following orders and stuff like this. And it's good that Owasekin was right there to help her out and be like, shields are ready and whatnot. But Saru needs to have a conversation with Detmer, and I need to see that.
Yeah, I think we'll see that in the next week or two. Yeah, but yeah, they're definitely interesting how they'll address that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But other than that, that's all I got.
Okay, Chrissy, final thoughts?
I think I've covered everything I wanted to say. So. Final thoughts, bring me next week.
Okay.
Is it Thursday?
Yes, I agree. Love the episode. Lots of exciting stuff. I mean, I think next week probably they'll be going to Trill, which is amazing because like the only time I think we've been there is in a pair of DS9 episodes. So it's not a place that we go very often. It would be really nice to go there, see what the memories are, and maybe from that we'll have some indication of some of the past events. So just really looking forward to that. All right. So Darsa, thanks so much for joining us for the discussion today. Let our listeners know where they can find you online and if you have any current and upcoming work you wanted to mention to our listeners.
Oh, gosh. Well, I have a Twitter account at Darsa Donelan. You can also search for me at my institution's website, Gustavus Adolphus, gustavus.edu, and I am on the faculty in physics.
Okay, awesome. And
Excellent.
Any Star Trek cosplay planned for the near future? Well, you probably aren't doing in-person classes, so maybe that's not or would you cosplay for a virtual class?
Ooh, that would be fun. Mostly I'm working on making sure that I can teach in a virtual environment.
Yeah,
That's
I can
tough.
totally
with
see that.
a lab-based, sciences like that. At least you're a little more on the side, not like chemistry where you got to be worrying about actually pouring stuff together.
Yeah. Well, the challenges. But yeah, thank you for joining us today. It was wonderful having you along for the discussion. Okay, so Brandon, tell our listeners, where can they find you when you're not eating hummingbird cake and saying that cake is absolutely eternal?
Okay, is hummingbird cake made out of hummingbirds?
I don't think so.
Yeah, what is that?
I hadn't
never
heard of
heard
it
of this
before.
So
While you're talking, I'll look it up.
you can find me on Twitter at Brandon Matella. You can find me. I don't really comment a lot on a lot of social media. I post a lot of stuff. Right now, it's a lot of anti-Trump. I mean, I'm looking forward to this being done. Like it might be like a little while before it's done, but I mean, at least we'll kind of get an idea of what's going to be happening.
Yeah, that's true. And if you're listening to this on election day and you haven't voted yet, please do.
Please vote. Please vote. But other than that, for my podcast, other than this, I've got Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast where me and my friends Chris and Tom cover all of Hitchcock's films in chronological order. I'm working on House of Nolan as we're waiting for David Fincher's last film to cover for House of Fincher. We're moving on to House of Nolan, and after I'm done recording this tonight, we're covering The Dark Knight. So that was a whole heck of a lot of fun. Damn, right. Heath Ledger's so good at the Joker in that movie. So good.
Nice.
And
go ahead.
And then also the last show is here on the network as well with Franchise Fatigue, where my friend Zach and I cover movies, remakes, and sequels. What'd you find? Hummingbird cake.
Yes, hummingbird cake, according to Wikipedia, is a banana pineapple spice cake common in the southern United States.
Bizarre.
Banana pineapple spice.
Weird.
And there's a picture there. It looks pretty weird. Okay. But listeners, if you have hummingbird cake, let us know.
We're going to get
send me
letters.
some hummingbird cake so
It's
I can try
not weird.
It's my favorite cake. Anyway, Chrissy, where can people find you when you're not having your helmet knocked off by Giorgio so that you can have a good dialogue with us and not fight us?
I wasn't sure if you were going to say when people were stealing my haircut, but...
That's Brandon's joke.
That's true. All right. I'm on Twitter at the Goddess Livia. That is TheGoddessLivia. And there I tweet about Star Trek history and leftist politics. You can also follow my work as an historian by liking the webpage my fellow historian partner Jason and I run, and that's History with the Szilagys, which is at historywiththeszilagys.org, and that is spelled SZILAGYIS. And if you are listening to this on Election Day and you have not yet gone to vote, and it's before the polls close, get your butt out there and vote. If you're listening to this afterward and we still don't know what's going on, don't get too worried, because there is, despite what we've heard, there is nothing actually in the Constitution that says they have to know who the president is at the end of the day on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November.
That's correct. It's the media that does rush to get the answer out. But I mean, with mail-in ballots and stuff like this, like they've got time to do everything. Like in Saskatchewan, we just had our provincial election, and there was a couple of ridings in the province where they thought it went to one party, and when the mail-in ballots came, it switched to the other party.
It can often be different. The only real deadline actually is the Electoral College in the U.S. meets in December. I think it's the middle of December,
and
so that's the real deadline.
And also keep in mind that if there's a tie that is thrown to the House, it's not answered by the Supreme Court. And the only reason...
then you have the fun thing where each state votes with its representatives, which hasn't happened in a long time. God, we have a fun system.
It's interesting because in Saskatchewan, we've got an odd number of ridings, right? So a tie, in theory, I guess a tie could happen because we don't just have the two. We've got multiple parties. But, I mean, we do have an odd number of...
the electoral votes. It's just strange.
That's
what was the other thing?
Sorry.
Momentary history corner. The only reason the Supreme Court got involved ever in presidential elections was because the George W. Bush campaign sued the Al Gore campaign over whether or not the vote should be counted in Florida. And the deciders of Bush v. Gore very specifically said in the decision, do not use this as precedent for anything ever again. And and if you haven't heard of it, look up the Brooks Brothers riot, and I'll stop there.
Okay.
Go vote.
Well, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at TrekFan4747, where I tweet about nothing but Star Trek. And you can find me in our Federation. I keep saying that. I want it to be the Federation, but it's not. Our Facebook group, Federation Council Chambers.
It is a federation.
Where we talk about United Federation of Podcasts, yes. Episodes. So thank you very much for tuning into Infinite Diversity. Thank you to our executive producers Ken Tripp, Tony Robinson, and Zach Moore. Thank you to Zach Tripp for the wonderful theme music and Tony Robinson for the awesome show art. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, and please subscribe. And we have here an Apple Podcasts review, right? And it was a 5-star review with the subject of Great Group of Trekkies, and this is from Grievous Fan 91.
Star Wars fan? Grievous is good. I like Grievous.
who says, fun, balanced discussion about Star Trek that is honest, yet strives to always see the positives when some aspect may not work for them. So thank you. That's exactly what we're going for. Our honest opinions, but trying to keep things positive, but we talk about things that don't work for us as well.
Thank you.
So as well, if you want to reach out, you can find us on Twitter at UFP Earth or a Twitter handle of @IDIC Podcasts. And as I mentioned, we have our Facebook group for the United Federation of Podcasts called the Federation Council Chambers. Please join us there. Or you can email us at infinitediversity@ufp.earth. Still not getting enough emails, so please send them to us. And on the next episode, we'll be talking about episode 4 of season 3 of Discovery, Forget Me Not, which is certainly about Trill memories. So until then, peace and long life.
This has been a production of MTMR Media Works.